The fluorescent lights in the dorm common room buzz overhead with that persistent hum that becomes white noise after enough late nights. It's past midnight on a Tuesday, and the space feels abandoned except for the soft mechanical breathing of vending machines and the distant murmur of someone's television bleeding through thin walls. I sit cross-legged on the worn fabric couch, the kind of furniture that's seen too many students and carries the weight of 1,000 casual conversations in its sagging cushions. My phone rests in my palm, earbuds trailing from its base like delicate white veins. I have one bud nestled in my left ear, the other dangling free against my chest. The song playing is something I discovered last week, something with a melody that wraps around my ribs and settles there, making itself at home in the spaces between my heartbeats. It's the kind of music that feels like a secret, like something meant to be experienced alone in moments exactly like this one. The common room door opens with its familiar creak, and I don't need to look up to know it's Isaiah. There's something about the way he moves through space, unhurried but purposeful, that I've memorized without meaning to. He appears in my peripheral vision first, then settles beside me on the couch with the casual confidence of someone who knows he belongs wherever he chooses to be. He doesn't ask if he can sit. He never does. That's Isaiah, assuming welcome, and somehow always being right about it. His presence shifts the entire atmosphere of the room, like a stone dropped into still water, creating ripples that I feel more than see. The cushion dips under his weight, and suddenly the expanse of worn fabric between us feels both too wide and impossibly narrow. Without a word, he reaches for the dangling earbud. His fingers brush against my chest as he lifts it, such a brief contact that it might have been accidental, except for the way my skin registers the touch like a small electric shock. He settles the bud into his ear with practiced ease, and suddenly we're connected by this thin white cord, tethered together by technology and choice. The song continues, and now it's ours instead of mine. The melody that felt so personal moments ago becomes something shared, something that exists in the space between us rather than within me alone. I can sense him listening, can feel the way his breathing shifts to match the rhythm. And I wonder if music sounds different when it travels through two sets of ears simultaneously, if the harmonies rearrange themselves to accommodate the intimacy of shared experience. Isaiah shifts beside me, settling deeper into the couch, and our shoulders align. The contact is casual, the kind of comfortable proximity that develops between friends who spend too many hours in each other's orbits. Except tonight, something feels different about the weight of his shoulder against mine, about the way he doesn't create distance, even when there's room to spread out. The song builds toward its bridge, layers of instrumentation weaving together like voices in conversation, and I feel myself getting lost in the complexity of it. This is what I love about music, the way it can transform a mundane moment into something cinematic, the way it can make sitting in a fluorescent-lit common room feel like the opening scene of something important. Isaiah's hand rests on the cushion between us, palm down, fingers relaxed. I notice this peripherally, the way you notice background details that don't seem significant until they suddenly do. My own hand lies nearby, close enough that if either of us shifted slightly, we might touch by accident. The song swells, reaching the emotional crescendo that always makes my chest tighten, and that's when it happens. Isaiah's hand moves, just slightly, until his fingers brush against mine. It's the lightest contact, skin meeting skin across the neutral territory of worn fabric. And for a moment, I think it might be unintentional, just the natural result of settling into the music's rhythm. But he doesn't move away. Instead, his fingers press more deliberately against mine, no longer a brush, but a definite touch, purposeful and unmistakable. The contact sends something electric up my arm, a recognition that travels faster than thought, and suddenly every nerve ending in my body seems hyper-aware of this single point of connection. My chest tightens, not from the music this time, but from something else entirely, something that makes my pulse quicken and my breathing shallow. The song continues to play, its familiar melody now a soundtrack to this moment that feels both earth-shifting and gossamer fragile. I'm afraid to move, afraid to breathe too deeply, afraid that any sudden motion might break whatever spell has settled over us. Isaiah's thumb traces across my knuckles with deliberate gentleness, and the gesture is so intimate, so intentional, that it strips away every pretense of casualness. This is an accidental contact between friends sharing music. This is something else entirely, something that exists in the territory beyond friendship, but hasn't yet been named or claimed. I stare straight ahead at the blank television screen mounted on the opposite wall, using its dark surface as a focal point, while my entire world narrows to the sensation of his fingers against mine. The fluorescent lights continue their persistent buzz. The vending machines continue their mechanical breathing. But everything else has shifted into soft focus except for this connection, this bridge of skin and warmth and unspoken intention. The song reaches its final verse, and I realize that when it ends, we'll have to acknowledge what's happening between us, or we'll have to pretend it isn't happening at all. The silence that follows will demand something from us: explanation or retreat, advancement or denial. The prospect of either possibility makes my heart race with equal parts anticipation and terror. But for now, in this fluorescent-lit sanctuary with its backdrop of mechanical sounds and distant television murmur, we exist in the space between casual and profound, between friendship and something else entirely. His fingers remain pressed against mine, steady and sure, while the music wraps around us like a cocoon, holding this moment in amber, making it feel both eternal and precarious. The last notes fade, and the silence that follows feels pregnant with possibility, heavy with everything we haven't said and might never say. The earbuds continue to connect us physically, even as the absence of music creates a different kind of intimacy, one that exists in quiet spaces and shared breath and the steady pressure of his hand against mine. And still, neither of us moves away. I have always been the kind of person who observes before participating, who memorizes song lyrics in the safety of my own head before ever risking the vulnerability of singing them aloud. There's something about putting yourself out there, about claiming space with your voice or your presence, that has always felt like standing on the edge of a cliff with no guarantee of solid ground below. Isaiah is my opposite in this regard. He fills rooms effortlessly, draws people into his orbit without seeming to try, laughs in a way that makes others want to join in even when they don't know what's funny. In the dining hall, he's the one people gravitate toward, the center of conversations that sprawl across multiple tables. He remembers details about people's lives, asks follow-up questions about their weekend plans or their struggling calculus grades, makes everyone feel like they matter in his world. But here's what I've noticed, what I've been collecting like evidence in some private investigation. When the crowds thin out, when the dining hall empties and the common areas grow quiet, it's always us. Just us. Two people who could theoretically seek out other company, but consistently choose not to. Music became our shared language sometime during those first awkward weeks of freshman year. I remember the exact moment. I was sitting alone in the lounge, earbuds in, when he appeared beside me with that easy confidence of his and asked what I was listening to. Instead of just telling him, I offered him the spare earbud, and something clicked into place between us, some rhythm that we've been following ever since. We started swapping playlists without ceremony or explanation. I would find songs in my queue that I knew I hadn't added, tracks that bore the unmistakable fingerprint of Isaiah's musical taste, slightly more optimistic than mine, drawn to melodies that build towards something hopeful rather than settling into beautiful sadness. In return, I would slip quieter songs into his rotation, the kind of introspective pieces that reveal their complexity slowly, that reward careful listening. Car rides became our natural habitat. Whether driving to the 24-hour diner on the outskirts of town or just circling campus with no particular destination, we would settle into this ritual of shared sound. I would watch his hands on the steering wheel, notice the way his voice would join the harmonies without self-consciousness, creating a third melody that existed only in the space between the speakers and our voices. Neither of us ever acknowledged that these impromptu harmonies sounded like conversations, like the musical equivalent of finishing each other's sentences. To everyone else, we simply make sense as friends. We're compatible in all the obvious ways, similar enough to understand each other, different enough to stay interesting. People see Isaiah's extroversion balanced by my quieter nature, see the way we complement rather than compete with each other, and they file us under the category of successful friendship without looking deeper. But I've been looking deeper, collecting moments like pressed flowers in the pages of my memory. The way Isaiah's voice shifts when we're alone, dropping its performative edges and settling into something softer, more genuine. The way he asks me about songs, not just what I'm listening to, but whether I've heard this one yet, whether I think it captures something specific he can't quite name himself. The way these questions arrive with a kind of careful vulnerability, as if my opinion carries weight beyond casual curiosity. There's something about the act of sharing earbuds that creates its own intimacy, its own rules. The physical tethering, yes, but also the way it requires a certain synchronization of movement, an awareness of the other person that extends beyond just listening. You can't get up and walk away without consideration. You can't shift positions without negotiating space. You exist in this small sphere of shared experience, connected by technology, but also by choice, by the mutual agreement to stay close enough for the cord to reach comfortably. I think about proximity a lot these days. How Isaiah sits just slightly too close in the library, close enough that I can smell his detergent and feel the warmth radiating from his skin. How our arms rest against each other across study tables with a casualness that feels both natural and electric. How when we walk across campus, our strides have somehow synchronized so that our shoulders bump with each step, a rhythm of contact that neither of us acknowledges but neither of us disrupts. These moments accumulate like evidence, building a case for something I'm not sure I'm brave enough to examine directly. Because what if I'm reading significance into gestures that are simply friendly? What if the careful way he cues up certain songs for me to hear is just enthusiasm for music rather than coded communication? What if the way his hand lingers when passing me the earbud is just natural movement rather than intentional touch? But then there are the songs themselves, the lyrics he chooses to share with me. Songs about finding someone who feels like home, about the space between friendship and something more, about the weight of unspoken words. These aren't random discoveries. They're curated, selected, offered like gifts wrapped in melody and delivered through the intimate channel of shared earbuds. Late at night, alone in my dorm room, I replay the moment from the common room over and over. The deliberate pressure of his fingers against mine, the way he traced my knuckles like he was memorizing their shape, the fact that he didn't pull away even when the song ended and silence stretched between us. I wonder if he's replaying it too, if he's questioning what it meant, or if he knows exactly what it meant and is simply waiting for me to catch up. The thought that Isaiah might be holding this same secret, might be navigating this same territory of almost but not quite, makes something flutter in my chest. Because if that's true, then we're both walking this careful line together, both pretending that casual touch is casual while knowing it's anything but. The next night, I find myself back in the common room at the same time, though I tell myself it's coincidence. I brought my phone and earbuds again, settling into what's apparently become my spot on the couch. The fluorescent lights buzz with their familiar persistence, and the vending machines maintain their mechanical conversation in the background. Everything feels exactly the same as yesterday, except for the weight of anticipation sitting heavy in my chest. When Isaiah appears in the doorway, I feel something tighten in my throat. He moves with that same casual confidence, but there's something different in the way his eyes find mine immediately, as if he's been thinking about this moment too. He crosses the room without hesitation, but I notice the slight pause before he settles beside me, a momentary acknowledgement that last night changed something between us. I have one earbud in, the other waiting. The song playing is something new, something I discovered this afternoon while trying not to think about the pressure of his fingers against mine. Isaiah reaches for the spare bud, and this time when his hand brushes my chest, the contact feels intentional, deliberate. Our eyes meet for just a second, and I see something there that makes my pulse quicken, recognition, maybe, or confirmation that we're both remembering the same moment. He settles the earbud into place, and we're connected again. The song fills the space between us, but instead of relaxing into the familiar rhythm of shared listening, I find myself hyper-aware of every detail. The way his breathing matches the tempo, the way his shoulder presses against mine, which is slightly more intention than friendship requires. Our hands rest on the cushion between us, close but not touching. I can feel the warmth radiating from his skin, can sense the careful way he's positioned his fingers so that any movement might bring us into contact. The space between our hands feels charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. The song builds toward its chorus, layers of instrumentation weaving together. And that's when Isaiah makes his choice. His hand moves across the small distance between us, his fingers sliding beneath mine and lacing together with deliberate gentleness. Not a brush this time, not an accident, a decision. My breath catches in my throat. The sensation of his palm pressing against mine, of his fingers threading between my own, sends electricity shooting up my arm and straight to my chest. This is crossing a line we can't uncross, claiming territory we can't unclaim, and the weight of that recognition makes everything else fade into background noise. Isaiah doesn't let go when the song ends. Instead, he holds our joined hands steady as silence settles around us, and I can feel his pulse through his palm, quick and uncertain despite the confidence of his gesture. The quiet stretches between us, filled with everything we're not saying, everything we're acknowledging without words. Then he does something that stops my heart entirely. He reaches for his phone with his free hand, scrolling through his music library while keeping our fingers interlaced. The deliberateness of it, the clear statement that this connection isn't temporary, that he's planning to maintain this contact through whatever comes next, makes my head spin. He finds what he's looking for and taps play. The opening notes fill our shared earbuds, and I recognize the song immediately. Something about wanting more, about reaching out and refusing to let go, about the space between friendship and love, where everything feels possible and terrifying at once. The lyrics speak directly to the moment we're living, as if Isaiah has reached into my chest and found the words for feelings I haven't been brave enough to name. Don't skip, he says, his voice barely above a whisper, thumb tracing across my knuckles in rhythm with the melody. Let it play again. The way he says it, the quiet intensity in his voice, makes it clear this isn't really about the song. This is about us, about this moment, about the choice to stay in this space we've created between casual and profound. His thumb continues its gentle movement across my skin, and the repetitive gesture feels like a question and an answer at the same time. I nod, not trusting my voice, and he taps the replay button. The song begins again, and somehow it sounds different this time, more urgent, more personal. Each lyric lands with new weight now that I understand Isaiah chose this particular song for this particular moment. Now that I know he's been thinking about us in the same terms I have. As something more than friends, something that exists in the territory beyond casual, but hasn't been named yet. Our joined hands rest on the cushion between us like a small declaration of intent. The contact should feel strange, should trigger all my usual anxieties about vulnerability and exposure, but instead it feels like coming home to something I didn't know I was missing. His skin is warm against mine, his grip firm but not possessive, confident but not presumptuous. The song plays on, wrapping around us like a cocoon, and I find myself memorizing every detail of this moment. The weight of his hand in mine, the way the fluorescent lights cast everything in slightly artificial color, the mechanical breathing of the vending machines creating a rhythm beneath the music. I want to preserve this exactly as it is, this perfect balance between known and unknown, between safe and terrifying. When the track ends again, Isaiah doesn't reach for his phone. He just lets the silence settle around us while our hands remain connected, and I realize we've crossed into new territory together. The invitation he extended isn't just about the song or even about this moment. It's about everything that comes after, about choosing to acknowledge what's been building between us instead of pretending it doesn't exist. The unspoken question hangs in the air between us, patient and persistent. What happens now? The days that follow feel like living in a different frequency, as if the world has been retuned to accommodate something new between us. Everything looks the same from the outside. We still meet for meals, still study together in the library, still walk the familiar paths across campus. But underneath the surface of routine, every interaction carries the weight of that moment in the common room, the memory of his fingers laced through mine, and the song that said everything we couldn't. In the dining hall, Isaiah chooses the seat beside me instead of across from me, claiming the space at my shoulder with a casualness that feels anything but casual. Our arms rest against each other as we eat, this constant point of contact that neither of us acknowledges but neither of us breaks. When he reaches for his water glass, his elbow brushes my ribs. When I lean forward to hear someone's story from across the table, my shoulder presses into his, and I feel him lean back into the contact rather than create distance. These small touches accumulate throughout each day like evidence of something deliberate, something chosen. In the library, we sit at our usual table by the windows, but now our textbooks overlap slightly, creating excuses for our arms to meet across the surface. When Isaiah reaches for a pen, his wrist grazes mine. When I turn pages, my hand brushes his notebook. Each contact lasts only seconds, but the awareness of them stretches much longer, creating a constant low-level electricity that makes it difficult to concentrate on anything else. Walking across campus becomes an exercise in synchronized movement. Our strides have always matched naturally, but now there's something intentional about the way our shoulders bump with each step, the way we navigate crowds by staying close enough to brush against each other rather than creating individual paths. When we stop to talk to other people, we position ourselves so that some part of us remains in contact. His hand on my shoulder, my arm against his side, small claims of connection that feel possessive without being obvious. I find myself cataloging these moments obsessively, turning them over in my mind during lectures and late-night study sessions. The way Isaiah's hand lingers when he passes me something, fingers touching mine for just a beat longer than necessary. The way he leans in when he talks to me, close enough that I can feel his breath against my ear, close enough that his proximity makes my pulse quicken. The way he finds excuses to touch my arm when he's making a point, as if physical contact helps him communicate something words can't quite capture. But it's the uncertainty that makes everything feel electric and terrifying at once. Because while these touches feel deliberate, feel like the continuation of something that began in the common room, they exist in this gray area between affection and intention. Each moment could be explained away as natural friendship, as the kind of comfortable physicality that develops between people who spend a lot of time together. The plausible deniability makes every interaction feel like a test, like we're both waiting to see how far we can push before someone acknowledges what's actually happening. Late at night, alone in my room, I replay each touch, each moment of contact, searching for confirmation that Isaiah is feeling the same pull I am. The way his hand settled on my shoulder during our conversation with Sarah from our chemistry class, fingers squeezing gently before letting go. The way he positioned himself behind me while we waited in line for coffee, close enough that I could feel the warmth of his chest against my back. The way he laughed at something I said and reached out to touch my arm, his hand staying there for several heartbeats longer than the joke warranted. These memories loop through my mind like a playlist on repeat, and I wonder if Isaiah is experiencing the same kind of mental cataloging, the same careful analysis of every interaction. I wonder if he's lying awake, questioning whether my responses are encouraging or just polite, whether the way I lean into his touch means what he hopes it means, or if I'm simply comfortable with casual contact. The earbuds appear with increasing frequency now, as if we've both recognized them as our most honest form of communication. In study rooms, in quiet corners of the student center, during the long walks that have become our evening routine, one of us will produce phone and earbuds, and we'll settle into that familiar ritual of shared listening and intentional touch. Our hands find each other immediately now, without hesitation or pretense, fingers lacing together as naturally as breathing. The songs Isaiah chooses feel increasingly pointed, increasingly personal. Tracks about wanting more, about the space between friends and lovers, about hands that fit together like they were designed for connection. Each playlist feels like a coded message, a way of saying things we're not quite brave enough to speak aloud. In return, I offer songs about uncertainty and hope, about the fear of ruining something good by wanting it to be something more. We exist in this suspended state, this place between friendship and something else entirely, where every touch carries meaning, but no one has been brave enough to define what that meaning is. The territory we're navigating has no clear maps, no established rules, just the accumulating evidence of our choices and the growing certainty that whatever is happening between us is happening to both of us. Each day brings us closer to some inevitable moment of definition, some point where the gray area we've been living in will require more clarity. But for now, we continue this careful dance of almost but not quite, of touches that mean everything and nothing, of shared music that says what we can't seem to say with words. It happens on a Thursday night, almost 2 weeks after that first moment when everything shifted between us. We're back in the common room, but this time it's earlier, around 10 instead of past midnight. There are a few other students scattered throughout the space, someone studying at a corner table, a couple watching something on a laptop with their own earbuds in. But somehow we still feel isolated in our familiar corner of the couch. Isaiah pulls out his phone with the same deliberate motion that's become our ritual, but there's something different in his movements tonight, something that carries more weight than usual. His fingers scroll through his music library with unusual care, as if he's searching for something specific rather than following instinct or mood. He finds what he's looking for and passes me the earbud. Our hands meet in that space between us, and his fingers immediately find mine, threading together with the practiced ease of repetition. But tonight his grip is different, firmer, more insistent, as if he's anchoring himself for something that requires courage. The song begins, and I recognize it immediately as something new, something I've never heard him play before. The opening notes are gentle, almost tentative, but there's an emotional weight to the melody that makes my chest tighten with anticipation. The lyrics begin, and each word lands with surgical precision, speaking about wanting more, about reaching out and not letting go, about the moment when friendship transforms into something that has no safe name. This isn't just background music or atmospheric sharing. This is communication, deliberate and unmistakable. Each verse builds towards something that feels like confession, like the musical equivalent of laying all your cards on the table and waiting to see how the other person responds. The bridge comes, and the lyrics speak directly about hands that fit together, about the electricity of touch that pretends to be accidental but never is. Isaiah's thumb traces across my knuckles in rhythm with the melody, and the gesture carries so much intention that I can barely breathe. This isn't the casual affection we've been navigating for weeks. This is acknowledgement, this is claiming, this is stepping out of the gray area we've been living in and into something that demands a response. The song reaches its emotional peak, strings swelling behind vocals that crack with vulnerability, and I feel Isaiah's grip on my hand tighten. His breathing has changed, become shallower, more careful, and I realize he's as nervous as I am about what comes next. We're balanced on the edge of something that will either deepen everything between us or complicate it beyond repair. When the final notes fade, the silence that follows feels pregnant with possibility and terror in equal measure. Neither of us moves to reach for his phone. Neither of us suggests playing something else. We sit in the quiet, our hands still joined, while the weight of the song's message settles between us like a question that can't be taken back. Then Isaiah does something that stops my heart entirely. He turns toward me, shifting on the couch so that he's facing me more directly, and his free hand comes up to rest on my knee. The contact is gentle but unmistakably purposeful, a second point of connection that makes his intentions impossible to misinterpret. This song, he says, and his voice is quieter than I've ever heard it, rougher with something that might be fear or hope or both. This song makes me think of you. The words hang in the air between us, simple and devastating. There's no ambiguity in them, no room for interpretation or safe retreat. He's named what's been building between us, given it shape and weight and reality. The careful dance we've been performing for weeks has led to this moment, this choice to step out of subtext and into truth. I can barely breathe as I look at him, seeing something in his expression that I've been hoping for and dreading in equal measure. His eyes are steady but vulnerable, holding mine with the kind of intensity that makes the rest of the room fade into irrelevance. The hand on my knee trembles slightly, and I realize that despite his apparent confidence, he's terrified of my response. Our fingers lace together tighter, an unconscious acknowledgement of what he's just revealed. The pressure of his hand against mine feels like an anchor now, something solid to hold on to, while everything else shifts and reorganizes around this new reality. The song he chose wasn't just about wanting more. It was about us, about the specific way our hands fit together, about the electricity that runs between us every time we touch. The silence stretches, but it doesn't feel empty or awkward. It feels full of everything we haven't said yet, everything we're both still trying to find words for. I can see him waiting, can feel the tension in his body as he holds himself still, giving me space to respond to his revelation without pressure or expectation. But the truth is, there's no hesitation in me, no uncertainty about what I want to say back to him. The weeks of careful touches and meaningful glances and songs shared in the dark have all been leading to this moment. This acknowledgement of what we've both been feeling, but neither has been brave enough to name. The words are right there, waiting on my tongue, simple and honest and overdue. The recognition that this song doesn't just make him think of me, it makes him think of us, of what we could be if we stopped pretending that casual touch is casual, if we stopped hiding behind the safety of friendship, when what we're feeling has already moved far beyond those boundaries. I squeeze his hand tighter, feeling the way his breath catches in response, and prepare to cross the last bridge between us. The moment stretches between us like a held breath, and I realize that everything that comes next depends on what I choose to do with the words he's just given me. I could laugh it off, could treat his confession as another layer of our ongoing banter, could find a way to retreat back into the safety of ambiguity. The exit is right there, clearly marked, offering escape from the vulnerability that true honesty would require. But looking at Isaiah, really looking at him, seeing the careful hope in his eyes mixed with genuine fear, I understand that this isn't a moment where I can choose the easy path. His confession wasn't casual or careless. It was deliberate, brave, and it deserves the same level of honesty in return. I know exactly what I want to say. The words have been building in my chest for weeks, gaining weight and urgency with every shared song, every intentional touch, every moment when our hands found each other like they were designed for connection. But knowing what I want to say and actually saying it are different territories entirely, separated by all my usual fears about vulnerability and exposure. The silence has gone on long enough that I can see doubt beginning to creep into Isaiah's expression, a slight tightening around his eyes that suggests he's starting to interpret my hesitation as rejection. His hand on my knee shifts slightly, not pulling away but preparing to, and that small movement breaks something loose in my chest. I can't let him think that my silence means no. I can't let him believe that his courage in naming what's between us was met with anything other than recognition and relief. Isaiah, I say, and my voice comes out rougher than I intended, thick with emotion I've been holding back for too long. The sound of his name seems to steady something in both of us because his grip on my hand tightens and his shoulders relax slightly. I turn toward him more fully, mirroring his position on the couch, and suddenly we're facing each other completely, our knees almost touching, the earbud cord the only thing preventing us from being even closer. The physical repositioning feels significant, like we're literally turning toward something new rather than sitting side by side and hoping for the best. That song, I continue, and I can feel my heart hammering against my ribs as I force the words out. It doesn't just make you think of me. It makes me think of us too. The relief that floods his expression is immediate and unmistakable. His whole body seems to exhale, tension leaving his shoulders and his grip on my hand becoming less desperate and more certain. But there's still something careful in his eyes, still some part of him waiting for confirmation that we're talking about the same thing. I've been thinking about us for weeks, I tell him, the words coming easier now that I've started. Every time our hands touch, every time you choose a song that feels like it was written for this exact moment between us. I've been wondering if you were feeling it too, if those touches were as intentional for you as they were meaningful for me. Isaiah's free hand comes up to touch my face, fingers tracing along my jawline with such gentleness that it makes my eyes flutter closed. When I open them again, he's looking at me with an expression I've never seen before, completely unguarded, vulnerable in a way that makes my chest ache with tenderness. He says simply, I am. Every single time. The confirmation settles something in me that I didn't realize was still unsettled. For weeks, I've been navigating this territory of almosts and maybes, questioning whether I was reading too much into gestures that might have been purely friendly. But hearing him acknowledge the intentionality behind every touch, every meaningful glance, every song chosen with purpose, it transforms all those moments from hopeful interpretation into shared reality. Slowly, deliberately, I lean forward until our foreheads touch. The position brings us close enough that I can feel his breath against my lips, can see the way his eyes flutter closed, and then open again as if he's trying to memorize this moment. The earbuds are still in place, still connecting us, but the silence between us feels fuller than any song. Guess we're not just friends, huh? Isaiah says, and there's a laugh in his voice, shaky but genuine, like he can't quite believe we've finally arrived at this moment of honesty. The question in his words is rhetorical, but I answer it anyway, because after weeks of careful navigation and unspoken communication, I want there to be no ambiguity left between us. No, I say, my voice barely above a whisper. We're definitely not just friends. He laughs again, and this time it's pure relief, pure joy. The sound makes something light and warm unfurl in my chest, chasing away the last traces of uncertainty that have been shadowing every interaction between us. His thumb traces across my cheekbone, and the gesture is so tender, so deliberately intimate, that it makes my breath catch. I wanted this for so long, he admits, his voice soft and honest. Wanted to stop pretending that every excuse to touch you was casual. Wanted to stop hiding behind songs and hoping you'd understand what I was trying to say. I know, I tell him, because I do know, have known on some level for weeks, even when I was too scared to trust my own interpretation. I wanted it too. Wanted to stop wondering if I was imagining the way you looked at me. Wanted to stop analyzing every touch to see if it meant what I hoped it meant. Our foreheads are still pressed together, and neither of us seems inclined to create distance. The common room continues its quiet activity around us, but we exist in our own bubble of newfound honesty, protected by the intimacy of shared confession and the certainty that we're finally on the same page. The choice has been made, the words have been said, and everything that follows will be built on this foundation of acknowledged truth rather than careful hope. Isaiah reaches for his phone without breaking our connection, his movements careful and deliberate as he navigates to the song that started all of this. The one about hands that fit together, about wanting more, about the space between friendship and something deeper. His thumb hovers over the replay button for just a moment. And when he looks at me, there's a question in his eyes, not about what we've acknowledged between us, but about whether we want to mark this moment with the same music that helped us find our way here. I nod, and he taps the screen. The familiar opening notes fill our earbuds again, but everything about hearing it now feels different. This isn't a coded message anymore. Isn't careful communication wrapped in melody and metaphor. This is simply a song we both love, playing as the soundtrack to the moment when we stopped pretending and started being honest about what we've been building between us. The common room has grown quieter around us. The student at the corner table has packed up and left, and the couple with the laptop has migrated to one of the study rooms down the hall. We're alone now, except for the distant presence of whoever is still awake in the dorms above us. Their muffled sounds of late-night existence creating a gentle backdrop to our small revolution. Isaiah shifts on the couch, and I follow his movement naturally, both of us adjusting until he's leaning against the armrest and I'm settled against his side. The repositioning feels like the most natural thing in the world, like we've been building toward this configuration through weeks of careful proximity and deliberate touch. His arm comes around my shoulders, and I let myself sink into the warmth of him, into the solid reality of being held without pretense or ambiguity. Our hands find each other again, fingers threading together with practiced ease, and I'm struck by how right this feels, how perfectly our palms align and our fingers fit into the spaces between each other's. The connection that felt so electric and uncertain just weeks ago now feels like coming home, like settling into something that was always meant to exist. The song plays on, wrapping around us like a cocoon, and I close my eyes and let myself fully experience this moment. The weight of Isaiah's arm around me, the steady rhythm of his breathing, the way our joined hands rest against his chest where I can feel the calm beat of his heart. Everything about this feels both monumental and peaceful, like we've climbed to the top of a mountain only to discover that the view from here is serene rather than overwhelming. I think about all the moments that led us here. The first time he sat beside me and reached for my spare earbud. The careful playlist exchanges, each song a small offering of trust and taste. The gradual evolution of casual touch into something more intentional, more meaningful. The way we learned to communicate through music when words felt too dangerous or too revealing. Each memory feels like a stepping stone now, part of a path that was always leading to this moment of honesty and connection. What felt uncertain and frightening while we were living through it now seems inevitable, like we were always going to end up here in each other's arms, listening to the song that helped us find the courage to name what we were feeling. The track reaches its bridge, and Isaiah's thumb traces across my knuckles in rhythm with the melody. The same gesture he's made dozens of times, but which now carries no weight of hidden meaning because everything is finally visible between us. The touch is simply affectionate now, simply tender, simply what it is without the complex layers of interpretation that used to make every contact feel like a puzzle to solve. When the song ends, neither of us moves to restart it or choose something else. We let the silence settle around us, comfortable and complete, filled with the quiet sounds of the building at rest and our own synchronized breathing. The earbuds remain in place, connecting us physically even in the absence of music, maintaining the literal tethering that has become such an important symbol of our emotional connection. Isaiah's hand moves to my hair, fingers threading through the strands with gentle curiosity, and the sensation sends warmth spreading through my entire body. This is what I've been wanting without knowing how to ask for it. This easy intimacy, this comfortable claiming of space in each other's presence, this ability to touch and be touched without second-guessing every gesture. I think I could fall asleep like this. I admit quietly the words spoken into the soft fabric of his shirt rather than to the room at large. I hope you do, he replies, his voice a low rumble against my ear. His arm tightens around me slightly, a gentle squeeze that feels like encouragement and protection at once. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead with their familiar persistence, and the vending machines maintain their mechanical conversation. But these sounds that once felt stark and institutional now seem comforting, like the audio signature of a place where something important happened between us. We don't kiss, not yet. There will be time for that, time for all the physical expressions of what we've acknowledged tonight. But for now, this is perfect. The weight of his arm around me, the steady pressure of our joined hands, the shared music that helped us find our way to each other, and the quiet certainty that we no longer have to pretend that any of this is accidental. The dorm settles into deeper quiet around us as the night grows later, and we remain connected by the thin white cord of our earbuds, by the careful architecture of our intertwined bodies, and by the knowledge that everything between us has finally been named and claimed and welcomed into the light.